your Xbox Game Pass Game of the Month Club.
I'm Spencer.
And I'm Mark, that spells Spark.
Your spark of inspiration to explore Game Pass.
Charging sequence at 30%, 50%, Chief, 70%, 90%.
This is Spark Pass.
Welcome to Spark Pass, your Xbox Game Pass Game of the Month Club. My name is Mark, and I'm T-posing all over the shop, and I am joined, as always, in beautiful, crisp, 30 frames per second. Spencer, how you doing, man?
I am so into this bit. Oh, dude, this is a good bit.
Can you guess what game we're talking about based on the bit? How's it going, everybody? Welcome to Spark Pass.
We're talking
so
about
it's
Starfield. Got him! Got him! Got him!
Oh,
this is what you can expect for an hour and a half. Got him!
Oh boy, it's gonna be an interesting one today, folks, because today we're talking about Redfall, because what the world needs is more Redfall discourse.
Yes.
That's what the world needs right now. We just got through summer game season. Xbox is riding on high. They had an awesome show. Let's go back and talk about this thing that nobody seems to want to talk about anymore.
Let's bring it back down. Bring it back down a little.
Let's bring it back down to earth a little bit. What's all right, you know what? Fuck it. Let's just launch right into it. The game we played this month for your Xbox Game Pass Game of the Month Club is Redfall, a 2023 open world-ish first-person shooter made by Arcane Austin and published by Bethesda and Xbox Game Studios. Oh, brother, where do we even begin on how this game has landed out of the gate with a dull, squishy thud?
Yeah, like, I'm very curious, because we learned a lot about this, actually,
Yes.
recently, that, like, there was things within the studio and within development that absolutely contributed to this game's release, right? I don't know, like, is that the right place to start? Or do we just talk about, like, the discourse around it? I don't know. There's so much.
That's where I had planned to start, was I wanted to start with the Jason Schreier article. If you guys have not read Jason Schreier's excellent article on Bloomberg, Schreier is like, if you're not familiar, if you're on the gaming internet, you probably know who Jason Schreier is. But if you don't, he's sort of like the go-to internal development reporter. Like, if something goes wrong in a game's development, more likely than not, Jason Schreier is going to make a video or make an article about it, right? And figure out what the hell happened. He was the one that had that really great breakdown on what the hell happened with Anthem a few years back. And he just put out an article a few weeks ago now about what the hell happened with Redfall. Basically, long story short, the team wanted to make the kind of games that Arcane traditionally makes. Arcane traditionally makes these single-player immersive sim games. Bethesda, the company, which was trying to get bought by someone, needed live service games, because that's a big component of the business of gaming these days, right? Mm-hmm. So Bethesda and its parent company, ZeniMax, basically said to the team, like, hey, we need a live service game, right? Team didn't want to make that game. The producers sort of like continually tried to find compromise. And it was eventually settled on Redfall. Redfall sort of just became the guinea pig within Arcane Austin. Over the course of this game's development, 70% of the staff just left. They booked it. They cheesed it out of this fucking place. They had difficulty hiring new staff because all the new staff they wanted to hire all wanted to make the kind of game that Arcane Austin usually makes. Single-player immersive sim games. Had a hard time finding multiplayer staff. The goal of what the game was like kept changing. We talked a lot in the pre-release of this game of like, we don't really know what the genre of the game is. What game is it like? As it turns out, the development staff at Arcane Austin didn't really know either. Which I think says a whole hell of a lot. So just a troubled, tumultuous development. And when Microsoft bought Bethesda, the hope internally at Arcane Austin was that Microsoft was going to cancel the game. That was their hope. And then that did not happen. And Microsoft took a very hands-off, like, we're just going to let you guys do your thing approach, which has upsides and downsides, right? We've talked about this before of, like, it gives the developer a lot of creative freedom, but sometimes you need somebody to rein you in, right? Microsoft did none of that reining in, and they have talked in post after the game is released of, we should have done a little bit more of that. So, long story short, a tumultuous development cycle led to the existence of this video juego. Obviously, Spencer, I know you were excited about this game.
Mm-hmm.
This is probably the game you were looking forward to the most out of the Xbox stable in 2023. Where are you at now knowing that story, that, like, this team honestly really did not want to make that game?
Man, I have so many thoughts on that. And I don't know how many of them are extremely fair, because I don't know anything about game development, right?
Right.
So what I do know about is, like, similar to you, we know about editing videos and making that kind of creative things. And I 100% do understand when you are working on a project that you hate and you are just like, oh God, this sucks. And you're definitely just not pouring all of it into it, right?
Yep.
You're phoning it in.
Yeah.
And you're just trying to get it done. So I get that. It's a bummer, though, because, like, I feel like the idea of this game of, like, going around and ridding this town of vampires and trying to save it with your buddies is really fucking cool. Like, that is so much fun. And then I'm at that point of, like, those what if points, right? Like, what if we had given this to a studio that wanted to do it? Or that, like, who was good at making these kind of games to begin with? Multiplayer live service, as much as I hate that part of it, but multiplayer games that they're used to making, not a studio who has exclusively made single player, very story heavy games, right? And it's just like, man, that sucks.
It is. I have very similar feelings on Redfall that I have for Anthem.
Yeah.
Because it's a very similar story if you really take the wide angle lens and stop and think about it. This is a multiplayer live service intended to be long tail game made by a traditionally single player studio that studio really didn't want to make, but was internally pressured by executives to make that style of game because that style of game is popular with investors and popular with players to an extent.
Yeah.
It very much feels like there is an idea here that is cool, but the vision got compromised, which is a real shame. So Spencer and I, just to give you guys an idea of how we played this exclusively co-op. Neither of us played this alone, unless you got some stuff done on your own that I didn't know about, Spence.
No, the only time I played it at all was with you.
Cool. Okay. So we played it for about 10 hours together. So we haven't played the full game, but we've played enough to have a pretty good idea of how we feel about it, I believe. The thing that kept popping into my brain the whole time was like, man, this is a cool idea, but they didn't execute it. Man, this is a cool idea, but they didn't execute it. There's a cool idea there, and it just sucks.
Yeah.
Like, there's several instances in this game where I went, this is a neat idea. There is something to this. There's something here. And man, it just doesn't work.
Yep.
That is how I felt the whole time I was playing this, dude.
Yeah, like, there were definitely times where we were playing it and I was like, oh, this is getting kind of good. Like, this is cool. And then we would kind of, like, reach the climax of whatever point we were at, or we would just, like, get to the next area and I was like, oh, well, that was gonna be cool, wasn't it? And then they just didn't make it cool.
Yeah.
They're like, no, We don't want this to be cool anymore.
Like, there are just some, like, weird design decisions in this game. At the midway point of the game, there's a random point of no return. That's weird.
Yeah, that was kind of like one of the big ones that I think we were both, while we were playing it, like, what is this? Why is this here? Like, this is dumb. There's no need for this.
Yeah, why is there just this random gate that no longer allows you to go back to the first half of the game? It's very weird. That's a weird design decision.
And it wasn't like at that point we were walking into end game. Like, if you were walking into the final boss fight, I get it. That makes sense. Yeah. But this was literally just like, hey, you're moving from this section of the map to this other section of the map. Like, what?
Yeah, why can't I go back and forth between those two? That's very silly.
Yeah.
Like, if they have to be separate zones because of whatever technical reason, that's cool. That's fine. But why can't I go back and forth? That's very silly.
Yeah.
So weird stuff like that. The loot pool is bad. Like, none of the... This is a game designed around the idea of kill stuff to get better gun. And the guns are just numbers. There's no... I didn't really feel anyway. And we got a couple of exotics, like legendaries or whatever they're called. I didn't feel any real discernible difference between the vast majority of them. It very much feels like stapled on because we're making a live service game and this is what Destiny does. Like, it is... I think Jez Corden called it the most unnecessary RPG layer in the history of video games. And I don't think he's too far off. Like, I did not see the need for any of this loot grind stuff in the slightest as I was playing it.
Yeah, it felt like they looked at Destiny and went, okay, we want guns like that. And then they looked at Borderlands and went, what if we did it the way that Borderlands does it? And those things don't really smush together super well, right? And then it was like, okay, well, we don't care about this game. Just make the guns shoot the same and make the spreadsheet number bigger. Like, that was all that felt different. There were a few that, like, maybe the fire rate felt a little bit different, but, like, every single revolver pistol felt the same, and they felt bad. Every single, like, slide action pistol felt the same, and they felt good. And it was like, okay, well, I guess I'm literally never going to use a revolver that I pick up, even if it's more powerful. Like, I don't care about this anymore.
The cool thing is, I will give them some credit. Compared to how the gunplay in Arcane games normally feels, apparently they brought in id at some point to, like, help them out with the gunplay, and you can feel it. The gunplay in this game, by and large, feels really nice.
Yeah, they probably could have let id do a little bit more work, though.
Yeah,
let's be honest.
But it's not their game. I get it.
Like, sure, I get that. But there were definitely like all the assault rifles just felt like they sucked. And I was like, I went through 90% of this game using a pistol.
Yeah, that's I didn't have I liked the assault rifles and the SMGs fine. I am not as, like, picky about how guns feel as you are.
True.
I like, you have very specific wants, right?
Yeah. It felt like a lot of the like assault rifles and more like fast-paced firing weapons were, like, entirely random. It didn't feel like it was as much with my ability to aim correctly as much as it was, okay, well, you're aiming in the general direction. Sometimes we hit, sometimes we don't. And I was like, well, now I just feel like I'm rolling dice instead of, like, using my skill as someone who's played shooters for 20 years.
Right. And there is some amount of, like, it's a loot game, and early game, they probably tune the numbers in such a way to where the spread is a bit more random, and then once you get the good loot, it
starts to kind of dial in, yeah.
Right. There's probably some amount of that going on. I remember feeling pretty similarly about a relatively good loot game, The Division 2, when I played that back in, like, 2020. I remember having a similar vibe of, like, why is none of this hitting? And then I got halfway decent loot, and it was like, oh, that was why. Okay. It's a
Yeah.
loot game. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So there's some amount of that. Man, it's just, again, there's cool ideas here. There's been so much talk about the things that Redfall does wrong. Story is another one. Like, these story cutscenes are bogus, and I think everybody knows it, and it very much feels like, we gotta get the game out the door. Fuck the cutscenes. Put up a art slate. Let's go, right?
That's exactly what they felt like. Because you can
Yeah.
do those kind of cutscenes well. They've
Yeah.
been done correctly in the past in games. This
They've
is
been
not
done
done correctly.
They've been done correctly in the past by games made by Arcane. Deathloop does this.
Yeah, and then that kind of does make me question, like, y'all couldn't just do that again? Like,
I mean,
again, I don't make video games, but I'm going to assume that putting a still image up that zooms a little bit is a lot easier than putting an animated cutscene in. I get it, y'all didn't want to make the game, but, like, shit, man, come on.
Yeah, it is worth noting that it is technically a different studio, Arcane Lyon versus Arcane Austin. It's a different studio, so, like, it's not a one-for-one comparison.
Come on.
Like, you literally have your sister studio over in France who did this effectively, like, 2 years ago, right? Like, get on the phone. Like, be like, yo, what up? Who did you use for the animation for your cutscenes? Sick. Let's just do that.
Yeah,
Like,
they're going to do it again.
they can do it again. That's fine. Because I thought, we played Deathloop last year. I thought the way they handled their sort of stylized, animated, mostly still frame cutscenes was effective, and it worked.
Yeah, I thought so.
And I felt like I was connected to the story. There's cool ideas in this story. Basically, long story short, company bad, corporation bad. Welcome to 2023, everybody. Corporation bad. They were experimenting with vampire tech, and right as they're about to get busted, they turn themselves into gods, and fuck up this entire city, and you've got to, like, grab the homies and infiltrate Redfall, Massachusetts, and save that shit.
Yeah.
That's basically the broad strokes of the story. There's some neat ideas in the story. We played through the whole, like, Hollow Man story path, essentially. Mm-hmm. The sort of first major boss. And I felt like that wasn't, like, it wasn't terrible, right? I wasn't sitting there going, this story's fucking stupid, right?
Yeah.
Like, I've had several instances playing games where I'm like, this story's fucking stupid. Why am I doing this, right?
Yeah, same.
I did not have that with Redfall. I had, like, this is fine. Like, this is a game story. I'm not, like, super jazzed at the premise of, like, oh man, we're gonna go fuck up the Hollow Man, let's go gamers, blah. Like, I wasn't like that level of pumped, but I also wasn't like, this is told poorly, this is not a good plot to begin with, this is putrid dog ass. I did not feel that way. I was like, it's fine.
Yeah, that's kind of how I felt about the whole story too. Like, it was fine. I did think it was kind of cool that each of us had slightly different dialogue and cutscenes based on which character we were playing, because, like, you're seeing the story from that character's perspective, and I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
But then again, we come back to, well, the cutscenes were bad,
Right.
and the story was fine. So, like,
Yeah.
is it good enough to care?
Right. And that's the thing, is, like, it's another one of it leads right into another bizarre design decision of they tried to thread the needle between being a single player game that they wanted to make and the multiplayer game that they didn't, and they did this weird thing where progression doesn't carry over from player to player, from session to session, right?
Yeah.
So you get these individualized, and I was willing to, before release, I was willing to accept that if there was, like, a good reason, right? There is not a good reason. Like, the only real differentiator was those unique cutscenes that you were talking about, where the dialogue would change based on the perspective of the character that you're playing. That's really the only thing.
Yeah.
And, like, you couldn't figure that out?
Yeah, and
They
even
probably
then,
could.
like, basically, you still get the same story, right? Like, it's to me, that's no different than, like, every other video game in the world having slightly different dialogue options.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, again, we don't make video games, so maybe there is some like weird behind the scenes technical reason that they couldn't do it. But since games have been doing it for decades, I don't feel like that's accurate.
Yeah, maybe, again, they talked about they had a hard time hiring people that knew how to make shit in multiplayer games, right? Like, this could be a question of, this is doable, but they didn't have the right expertise in the studio. Mm-hmm. And if that happens, we don't put the thumb on the studio, we put the thumb on the people that told the studio to make the thing, right?
And then couldn't figure out how to find someone to make the thing.
Right, exactly.
Because, maybe you can't hire someone in-house, but I'm going to assume that there are studios that would contract to do that part. Right,
yeah. This could have worked.
Yeah.
They could have, if they really wanted to, figured out a way to make this work. It probably would have cost more money than they were willing to spend. That is, unfortunately, the business reality.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I mean, there are budgets and things that you do have to stay within. So that
Right.
that is a reality. That makes sense, right? Like,
yeah,
if you have a budget and you're like, well, I would like to go $1 million over that budget to hire this other studio. Obviously, the people who are in charge of the money are going to go, yeah, we're not going to do that, dude.
No,
what the fuck
not,
are you talking about?
We're not doing that, yeah. So all this being said, there's a bundle of weird design decisions. There's a bundle of, stuff that doesn't work well. This doesn't even go into the technical, right? Like, this is just the design of the game is flawed. IMO.
Yeah.
It is an incomplete vision of what a good open world loot grind game is. When I talk about a good open world loot grind game, I talk about games like Destiny 2, The Division 2, games of that ilk, looter shooters. We mentioned Borderlands. Borderlands is a perfectly good example of something doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. A single player flavored variant of that is Far Cry, which again does a very similar thing. Not quite the same, but it's similar. All of these games could have been targets that they hit. They didn't hit one of them because they weren't sure which one they were trying to hit, right? So for me, the design of the game itself, we're not even talking about the technical, which everybody was so focused on. Just the design of the game itself feels incomplete to me. There's some good ideas, like we were talking about while we were playing it on the streams, those the vampire doors, the little their internal worlds. That's really fun.
Yeah, those were a blast.
Those are fun to play. That is absolutely the most fun I had playing the game, hands down.
Yeah, and even I look at that now and think about it these were fun. These could have been a lot more if this was a studio that made games like this regularly or was into making this game, right. These could have been huge dungeons or just big random events that could have dropped huge loot and been a real grind, right? Because there were only a couple times when we did that and we were only two people of feeling oh, whoa, we're getting a little overwhelmed here. And even then, we both just kind of ran back to a corner and just had a spot to shoot from, right? Mm-hmm. So man, that feels like it could have been a lot more and really been a risk reward thing where I felt like the rewards we got out of those were regularly, if not almost every time we did it, less than what I already had.
Yeah, or close enough to where it didn't really make a difference.
Yeah, close enough where I was okay, I guess I had fun shooting my way through this little dungeon, but what did I get out of it other than I spent 20 minutes doing it?
And that goes back to the flaw of the loot system is just, it's not there.
Yeah.
It's just not there. It doesn't make a significant enough difference.
Yeah.
That being said, those are fun to play. I had fun playing those. I had fun tooling around the open world with you.
Yeah. I was going to say, overall, I had fun playing the game, but that doesn't mean that there weren't a ton of flaws, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of flaws that could have been avoided, I feel by a variety of different things.
Yeah. all that leads to the technical on this game, which has really been, if we stop and take the wide angle, that has sort of been the discourse around this game, right? Mm-hmm. So many people have been focused on the technical that they haven't even gotten to the game design issues, right?
Yeah. Or they didn't even get to the game.
Right. This game runs at 30 FPS. Generously. Like, sometimes it dips.
I think I only had one big dip. I remember.
I had a few. I had a few dips.
And we're both playing on Series X. So this wasn't like a Series X versus Series S thing that people compared. We were both on the exact same console, essentially.
Right. I had a few. I definitely felt some sluggish performance from time to time. There's that. There's the AI issues, which I sort of noticed, but it wasn't like so pervasive that it was like all the time. Once in a blue moon, you'd have an AI that's like, oh, this guy's just very clearly not reacting and paying any attention.
Yeah.
Right?
And my big thing is, I don't feel like that would typically be an issue for this studio at all.
Yeah.
And I don't make video games, so I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, please correct me that I'm wrong. I don't feel like being multiplayer versus being single player is a big difference for that.
No. No.
Again, maybe I'm wrong. I'm sure there are slight differences, but y'all have made video games before. You know what an AI character should do. So I don't get where that happened at all.
Yeah. I think some of that is just
time, maybe?
Time. They're trying to get the thing out the door. This game was delayed once. Very clearly, it probably needed to be delayed again. Mm-hmm. We've talked ad nauseum about like why it couldn't be.
Yeah.
But you know, and even then, at the end of the day, I don't know that delaying this would have fixed the underlying game design problems that the game has. Right? Like, unless you just fully take this thing back to the drawing board, right? Like, unless you go, hey guys, you remember that vampire game we announced? It's not coming out till 2028 because we got to do the whole thing again.
Yeah. Like, and then honestly, at that point, like, just don't fucking make it anymore.
Yeah. At that point, just like, all right, just let Arcane Austin be free, right? And do whatever the fuck they want. All of this being said, the overall discourse around the game has been, it's an unplayable pile of hot garbage. This game is not unplayable.
No, it's not at all. Okay, yeah. We're getting to the part where Spencer's going to be a little bit spicy.
Yeah, okay, yep, it's Spice Hour. Bring it in.
Yeah, that has been what has made me the most angry about this discourse with people is as soon as people found out that this game was going to run at 30 frames per second, it was written off entirely by them, and every little tiny nitpick they could find, they have dunked on it for everything humanly possible. And I'm here to tell you, if you did that, fuck you. That's dumb. Stop being that way.
Yeah.
No,
I agree.
I haven't seen that same discourse for Starfield running at 30 frames per second. Sure, some people have brought it up, but my entire Twitter timeline has not been full of it like it was for Redfall.
I have seen a lot of that discourse on Starfield, to be fair. I have seen
so many more people going, no, that's fine. I'm okay with it because of X reason. And I'm like, are you picking and choosing here? Because it sounds like
amount of that. There's some amount of that for sure. Yeah.
And then I see the same things of like, well, this game's completely unplayable. I never played it, but they said it was unplayable. And I'm like, okay, well, it's not unplayable. It's in a more playable state than a lot of video games have come out in recently, and runs at a more stable frame rate than a lot of other video games. I'm looking at you, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, from the studio who makes one video game ever and still couldn't get it to run over 15 frames per second a lot of times. But all those people were completely fine with that. I'm looking at the fact that people couldn't play Diablo for 1,000 hours is what it said on people's screens. And they're just like, it's cool. I'll let it sit in queue for 2 weeks and then just be fine with it. You remember when they did that a decade ago and still couldn't get it right this time? But nobody cared about that. Listen, I agree with all of you saying that video games should come out in a playable state. They should not be broken. I agree with that. But that's not the reality that we live in, man. So let's not go and look at, well, this game was made by Xbox, and we hate it that it runs at 30 frames per second on the Xbox. And I never played it, but it's literally unplayable. Stop being a butthead about dumb stuff, dude. Like, Jesus Christ. If Starfield comes out and one person T-poses and somebody doesn't put an axe through their Xbox, I hate all of you.
How does that feel? How does that feel getting that out of you?
Oh, I've been saying it the whole time. I see one person talking about it, and they're like, this game's the worst thing ever made. I'm like, it's not. Shut up. You're wrong. Factually, you are incorrect.
Yeah. This is like a 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10 video game that had some technical issues, and then once those technical issues get fixed, it will proceed to be a 6 out of 10 or 7 out of 10 video game.
Yeah. I
It
will
is
guarantee you
fine.
that those people who have never played it or played like 10 minutes of it and then went unplayable, I guarantee you have played games exactly like this for thousands of hours and had a ton of fun with it with your friends. But this was the one that was fun to dunk on Twitter, so that's what you did. I don't know, man. Maybe just try it and think about video games that you enjoy for yourself, not what Twitter tells you to enjoy.
Hey, this has been a thing in gaming for as long as I can remember. Back in the 90s, it used to be I only play the video games that the magazines tell me to play, right? Like, this has always been a thing, right? This is not a new idea, right? Like, if you only played the game the GamePro said was good, which, by the way, there was a lot of dunking on 2D platformers back in the day on GamePro. If you worked for GamePro in the 90s, fuck you, you piece of shit. Well, how dare you make fun of Mega Man X4? I will fight you. I will fight you right now. Anyway, I'm getting off topic.
I don't know. I feel like that's kind of on topic.
This has always been a thing. That's the thing, right? Is like popular opinion and the discourse around a game leads a lot of people to form an opinion before they've actually played the thing, right? And then they carry that opinion into what they're playing.
Yeah.
I feel like both of us came into this game with, like, cautious expectations of, like, okay, we've heard there's some shit that's fucked up, right? And we acknowledge there's going to be some stuff that ain't great.
Yeah.
But, I had enough of a good time with this as like a 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10 video game that, like, I spent 10 hours playing it with you and didn't hate my life.
Yeah.
Right?
Like
there's enough here to, like, enjoy. It's a hard sell for me. I have a hard time recommending it to others, but, like, I didn't have an awful time with it, you know?
This, for me, was a game like right now, if I had to recommend it to people, it would be, do you have a Game Pass subscription? And do 1, 2, 3 of your friends have a Game Pass subscription? And you guys just need a game to play in the background while you talk about life, drink beer on the weekend, whatever. Great. Throw it on. It's good enough to have in the background. Are you going into this expecting the greatest story of all time and an amazing loot system? Yeah, this may not be for you.
I said this the first time we played it. If you are a fan of Arcane's games, I understand why you're disappointed and upset.
Yeah.
I totally get that, because this is straight up the worst game this studio has published, and they have a lineage of great shit.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there is no Arcane, both studios, Arcane Austin and Arcane Lyon, both studios have put out nothing but bangers since the studio's inception.
Yep.
This is the studio's first bad game.
Yep. And that's even, they've put out games that I just flat out did not enjoy.
Right.
I did not enjoy Prey in the slightest.
Right.
But I don't think it was a bad game. It just wasn't for me. And I don't know. Maybe that's just the lens that some people need to look at Redfall through, is I don't really want a multiplayer shooter game. That's fine. Don't play it then. But the people who love those kind of games, looking at you people that play Borderlands, looking at you people that play Destiny, and looked at it and immediately went 30 frames per second, broken game, literally never going to be a game ever again, kill it now. No, shut up. put this game on your Xbox or your PC and go spend 10 hours with your buddies playing it and really tell me that it's that different, because it's not.
Okay.
It's a
That was
looter
going to get some
shooter.
comments.
It's a looter shooter, dude. They're basically the same thing. Like, I get it, there are differences in how it does that, but it's a looter shooter. The whole point of the game is not to tell a good story. It's to play it with my friends and have fun. Like, damn, dude.
I don't know if you guys can hear the noise outside, but that's the fan base coming into my house.
I don't give a
Trying to
shit.
Fuck us
up.
up.
Tell me how this is that different from, like, Borderlands, especially, other than Borderlands does a million times better job with their guns. And makes way more annoying characters.
I don't know. It's not the genre for me. I'm not a huge looter shooter guy. Like, I've had fun with looter shooters, but like it's not really my genre. So like I couldn't tell you why it hits different. Lord have mercy.
What the hell is that?
There's a man right outside my window right now. All right, gang. So before a rabid gang of chainsaw men tried to come into my fucking apartment, I think they were trimming the bushes outside.
I think they hated Redfall that much.
I think they hate Redfall that much. Hopefully I do like a funny bit in the edit there. Jesus fucking Christ, I thought we were all going to perish. But we're now finally allowed to talk about this video game that the internet hates. See, the internet's even trying to censor positive commentary on Redfall through a man trimming my bushes.
It's a conspiracy. Big internet.
Conspiracy.
Big internet heard we were making this episode and we're like, send people there.
I just turn into the fucking guy from It's Always Sunny. You know the gif, the beautiful mind, like 1,000 red threads.
He's just got a cigarette in one hand and pointing at the wall with the other one. Just, I swear to God, big internet's out here to hate Redfall.
Big internet doesn't want me to talk about Redfall no more, man.
It's just this is fully turned into like Dale Gribble from Hank or from King of the Hill. Oh God,
Anyway.
that was wild. That was a wild time. That was like legitimately like 15 minutes that we were just like, okay.
Okay, this man's trimming this bush. I guess we're gonna live here. Anyway,
so you better listen to this episode. Hold on, you better listen to this episode. We committed to not giving up on you.
Yeah,
like a lot of you gave up on Redfall. Boom! Let's go. Got him.
Yeah, da 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 da. Whee! All right. I think we were sort of wrapping up our thoughts on Redfall of like, this game is like perfectly okay to mid. It's not a great game. I wouldn't even call it a good game. I think Spencer would. I wouldn't. You know, I don't want to speak for you, Spence, but like, it
was good enough, right? I think for me, it was good enough, in knowing and assuming that we could trust them, saying, "Look, guys, we've got patches coming.
Yeah,
like we're going to fix it." And you know, similarly to a lot of games, the people making it, even though apparently nobody wanted to make this game, so maybe that's a little bit different. But the people actually making the game, doing the like on the ground work every day, right, are not the ones also going, "Hey, we're going to release this on this day." Right. There are executives and like boards of directors and all kinds of way more complicated than it should be shit going, "No, we have to release it this day because of whatever reason they have made up or decided upon." This one, like we've talked about, is we think a lot of it was to do with the marketing campaign. It got a lot of money pumped into it saying it's coming out this day. And then they went, "Hey, this does not run at 60 frames per second." And they went, "Fine, put it out at 30 frames per second." And that alone was enough for a lot of people to write it off, which is I still think is stupid. Right. If that was your only reason for not playing this game, you're wrong. Go give it a shot, man. Like, I legitimately think you will enjoy it more than you think you would. And the 30 frames per second is not that big of a deal because it's not a competitive game. You're not losing the edge over the other person you're trying to shoot, especially because it's a computer-generated character. But I think that was kind of the biggest thing, was they were like, we made a mark, we can't miss it. So the rest of the team was like, okay, we just have to do what we can.
Right.
Get what we can done and make this at least where it runs and people can play it. And then we'll do the same thing that every other video game studio does in 2023 and has for like 10 years now, of just put out a patch later and it'll solve problems and we'll fix it as we go. Which again, and I don't want to speak for Mark, but I think he agrees with me. That's not how you should do it. That's not how this should work. But
Spencer, I like paying for a product that doesn't work.
But
I enjoy that.
That's the reality we live in. And unless you're all just going to literally stop playing video games until studios stop doing that, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, if you are that mad about patch culture, get a new hobby.
Yeah.
It ain't going anywhere.
Go find a different one, because unfortunately, this is how it is. Or everyone come together and stage a giant boycott, but that's never going to happen.
No,
because people are lazy and people don't care enough to do it.
No, boycotts don't work. And quite frankly, so much of this discourse around Redfall and around the games industry writ large is such a small little section of the larger people that play video games. I think it's worth recognizing that sometimes.
Yeah.
Like people made, I hate invoking this game, but it's the first game that comes to mind. So many people on the social internet were saying, fuck Hogwarts Legacy, no one's going to play it, for good reason. I don't disagree with the reasoning. I fully agree with the reasoning. Fuck that bitch. But that game sold 1 million billion copies from casual people that just play video games for fun and don't keep up with this shit.
Yeah,
right?
That's the thing. Is like, so much of this is the niche group, right? This is
then the niche within the niche of the performance heads.
Yeah,
right?
which
like it's a niche within a niche. It's like a few thousand of you.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're a niche within a niche. It's worth acknowledging that you're a niche within a niche.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, man. Go outside, touch grass, put an FPS counter on your window, and drive somewhere.
Yeah. Good luck actually differentiating between frames per second, but it's fine. You know what you're talking about more than we do.
There are people that genuinely can distinguish. I can tell, but it doesn't bother me. As long as it's consistent, I don't care.
I can tell, but there are also times where it's like, who cares? Like, I'm not gaining anything from this here.
Right.
And again, this is 100% a game that you really don't gain that much from it. This is coming from, again, somebody who's played shooters since, like, the literal first video game I ever played was Duke Nukem 3D.
Right.
And then Wolfenstein 3D. I have played shooters since I was a child and could use a computer.
Right.
I think I have a general idea of how they work. You're not going to notice a difference in this kind of game. I get the idea of thinking maybe you would, because it is a first-person shooter. But the way the enemies work and do things, like it's not a big enough difference to be game-breaking. If this was, a competitive first-person shooter where I am playing head-to-head against another person, we'll talk a little differently.
Sure.
I'm shooting computer-generated AI man who sometimes doesn't pay attention to me because there's a person across the field in your friend playing with you who they have decided to aggro on.
Right.
Dude, it ain't as deep as you think it is, I promise.
Yeah.
And again, those same people, some of the same people who I saw complaining about it, I have seen being like, yeah, it's cool. Starfield does it. It's fine. Whatever. Because it's the same idea. You're not playing against another person.
Yeah, I do feel like some people are using scope to justify Starfield running at 30 frames, where like Redfall is not a game with very big scope, dude. Like this open world is not very big.
Sure.
It is not doing anything graphically intense, I would say. I think it has a decent, appealing art style. but it's certainly not doing anything too intense.
Mm-hmm.
I think there is a justification of scale of graphical look is not the only thing that determines, the frame rate that a thing can run at. It's also CPU bottlenecking, and I'm sure that Starfield is doing a ton of CPU shit.
Oh yeah.
That is going to end up being a bottleneck towards getting that to run at a consistent 60. You're gonna have to have a monster, and like some of this comes down to, hey, y'all, you're expecting a $500 machine, whether it be the Xbox or the PS5, to do the same thing that your $2,000 PC Mega Rig does. And that's just not a realistic expectation at the end of the day. But we've gone off course, Spencer. Redfall. Overall, final thoughts. We talked the other day about this is our old Yeller episode. Let's put this thing behind the barn. What is your overall final vibe on the game? Thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs in the middle. I did that wrong, but
that's fine.
Work with me.
We'll figure it out. I'm gonna say it, and I don't fucking care. I'm still giving this game a thumbs up to check it out, dude.
Oof.
There is to me, there is not enough here that says this is not a game that is worth at least spending your Saturday afternoon with. Am I saying it's a good game? Not necessarily. Am I saying it's the greatest game ever made? Absolutely not. Am I saying it's a game without problems? Hell no. There are a lot of problems. And I think it's also worth noting that there is a patch coming to it that we did not get to experience before recording this episode.
That's true. Yeah.
That is supposed to fix a fair bit of issues. So my reason for a thumbs up is you should still try this game. If you are someone who enjoys looter shooters or just likes shooter games or just likes a game to play in the background with your buddies while you're, just cooling off after a long week of work, especially if you have Game Pass, it's included. You're not paying more for it. Literally the worst thing that happens is you play it for an evening and go, I didn't like that. That was not good. And then you move on with your life. If your reason for not playing the game is you don't like shooters, you don't like looter shooters, you don't like vampires, hey, this game's still not going to be for you. If your reason is it runs at 30 frames per second, shut up and install it.
If you were watching on video, you saw me back as far away from that take as I humanly possibly could.
That's fine. We can have differing opinions.
I cannot in good conscience thumbs up this game.
That's fair.
There is fundamental design flaws. The people who made it did not want to make it, and it is blatantly, hilariously obvious that they did not want to make it. The loot system is bad. The story is mediocre. The gunplay is ho-hum. I cannot in good conscience give this game anything other than a thumbs down. And that sucks. Because, I don't want to sit here and say that, it's a garbage, unplayable, dog shit, horrible experience. I have had plenty of times in my life where I have gotten a little bit of fun out of a bad video game. I played Marvel's Avengers for 100 hours. I know what I'm talking about when it comes to playing a bad game for a while and getting enjoyment out of it, right? This is not a good video game, y'all. It's just the fundamental design of the game is flawed. It is incomplete. It is not a completed vision of what this game could have been at the end of the day. So I cannot in good conscience give it anything other than a thumbs down. But does that mean I think you can't have fun with it? No. I have had plenty of fun with bad games in my life, and I think you can still find enjoyment out of Redfall. And I think there's plenty of people that have found enjoyment out of Redfall. You just don't hear them in the niche within a niche gaming echo chamber. So if this is something that sounds interesting to you, maybe go try it. But I can't in good conscience give it anything other than a thumbs down.
That's fair. I think those are completely fair reasons.
So there you go. There's our Redfall takes. There's our completed Redfall takes. It's Redfall. We're done with it now.
I'll say one more thing.
Oh God. Okay.
Any of you.
Let me prepare for the take. Let me hold up.
I think you'll be fine with this.
Okay.
If any of you when these patches come out, especially when they finally put that 60 patch out that you're all so obsessed with, go back and you play this game and you go, you know what? I am having fun with this game. I am going to say to you, that's awesome. I'm glad you finally gave it a shot and you're enjoying it.
Hey, there you go.
But I think as it is right now, I can see where you're at with your thumbs down for sure. And I don't think a patch is going to fix a lot of those things. Like it would take a lot of work to rework the guns, right? Like that's a whole year in itself, probably. Like all they're focusing on is tweaking those things. But I mean, if you're fine with just like gun got a little stronger, I can shoot more vamps, and that's all you really need, you'll probably be fine with it, you know? I do think a patch will fix a lot of the problems that people who haven't played it yet are concerned about. So maybe give it a little while and give it a shot. But I wouldn't say just, you know, say it's too little too late and write the whole thing off based on it being out for a month, you know?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like, I get that there's a lot of big games that have come out around it, and like,
if you just like don't have time for it, that's totally makes sense, right? Like,
the attention is lost. I will tell you right now, I am not deep enough in Tears of the Kingdom as I want to be. I ain't got more time for a mediocre ass video game like Redfall. I ain't got the time for it anymore.
Sure.
I still haven't touched. Bro, Street Fighter 6 just came out. I don't have a life. Like, I'm not punching men in the face in the battle hub enough, like, as it is, let alone making time to finish. You know, I played 10 hours of Redfall, and by the way, I have no progress on my local save because we played all of yours. We did all the progress is on your save.
Yeah.
So, like, I would have to start from the beginning of Redfall, and quite
or play
frankly,
with me only, which is stupid.
Yes, fuck that.
That should not exist. I 100% agree with that.
Not doing it. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I cannot in good conscience endorse this game to anybody else when there are 200 other games on Game Pass, most of which are really good, and there's also new Zelda, new Street Fighter, new Diablo. I cannot in good conscience endorse playing this game.
Yeah.
Like, maybe in 6 months when all the patches are out the door and you've got time and we're not getting fucking deluged with summer releases, sure, maybe come back. Maybe this is one you, like, put a pin in it and you come back to it in 6 months once they've got some shit worked out, right? But right now, I can't tell you to go play this instead of the 800 other things I said.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, there are a ton of other games that you'll probably have a better experience with than this one right now.
For sure.
Yeah. I don't know. Just if the one thing holding you back is that Twitter told you not to play it, tell those people to shut up and go play it, dude. Like, Jesus Christ. That's what's killing me about this whole thing. Like, my God.
I get it, dude. It's super annoying. I think this is the first time we've been, like, in this much of a dichotomy, but I feel like we're also on the same page. It's weird. Like,
I feel like this is one where it's just like, we get the reasons that each person has, right?
Right.
Like, it coming from both sides, it makes total sense. And I don't feel like there's, like, a right or wrong answer by any means. So, like,
as it turns out, some of this shit, as it turns out, some of this shit is subjective. Who knew? Yeah, isn't it crazy? Speaking of other games, Spencer, and the deluge of other games, normally this is where we do the games we've been playing segment, and I would tell you all about how I've been playing nothing but Street Fighter 6 and Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, but you already know that I'm doing that, right? I wanted to do something a little bit different today.
Okay.
We just got through the summer game season, right? Like, basically all the press conferences are done. I think the Yakuza studio is doing a show on, like, the 18th, I think. But other than that, the main shows, the Summer Games Fest shows are done.
Yeah.
We've seen everything we're going to see, essentially. The big weekend in LA is over, unless more stuff, obviously more stuff will probably get announced at Gamescom and Tokyo Game Show, but that's later down the line. That's more getting towards the fall. I just wanted to talk about all of these shows, we did a show already on the Xbox Showcase. So if you missed our Sunday show on the Xbox Showcase, our sort of recap of what we thought of the Xbox Game Showcase, you can go back and check out that episode. I just wanted to talk about games you thought looked cool from the Summer Games season.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what trailer looks sick? What gameplay caught your eye? What are you excited about in gaming coming up? Because we're basically looking at most of the stuff that got announced as like stuff coming next year, right? So what are you looking forward to now that we know what like the back half of 2023 and like basically the first half of 2024 is going to look like roughly? What got you excited? So let's talk about that. I'll give you the floor first. What game, trailer, gameplay, whatever it was, at whatever show, we can sort of bounce around however you want. What got you excited? What got you pumped?
All right, I'll tell you what. I have a few, and I'm going to start off with one that's going to feel like a meme, but it's not.
Okay.
Dude, I'm still so excited for Party Animals. Like, this is not a bit. This is not a joke. This is a real thing. I'm so excited about that game.
So, if you guys don't remember Party Animals from last year's Xbox Showcase, it's basically Gang Beasts, but with cute animals. That's sort of the best way I can describe it. It's a cutesy animal brawler.
Yeah, you play as adorable little animals with the floppiest arms and the silliest gravity physics, and you just beat your friends up.
Yep. And it is a very simple, straightforward game.
We played like a demo beta weekend for it, like, God, dude, probably back in like 2020. It was during like the height of lockdown stuff. We played it for all of Friday night. And started playing it like at dinner Saturday night and played it until 2:00 in the morning on Sunday and did not stop laughing the whole time. And this was like 6 or 7 of us. Like, we had a full group playing this shit.
It was a rotating cast. There was a bunch of us like drifting in and out because I think the max you could play in the demo was either 4 or 6. Yeah, I think it was 4. So we had just like a rotating cast of characters coming in and out, trying this game out, because the demo was just freely available to everybody, right?
Yeah.
So, this game looks rad. Like, I mean, is it an original concept? No, but it doesn't have to be. It's a goofy party game, and there's not enough of those. Mm-hmm. Like, there's just not enough. I need more goofy party games in my life, and this is definitely, like, I absolutely am stoked for Party Animals. And this one's on Game Pass, by the way.
Yeah.
So...
And I need more party games in this vein that are, like, full-blown video game, not more games like Jackbox. I'm not saying Jackbox is bad games. I hope that's not the way that people take it. I have had plenty of fun with Jackbox, but it became the Cards Against Humanity of video game party games for me, where every time we hung out with people, it was like, let's play Jackbox. And I'm like, if I ever look at that game again, I'm going to throw your TV out the window.
I'm picking up what you're putting down.
So
I am like, fun with Jackbox stuff, but I get it.
Yeah. So like, I'm really excited to have party games that anyone can get into and is just like a goofy fun time where we're actively interacting with something.
Right. Yeah. No, I'm picking up what you're putting down there.
Yeah, I am genuinely very excited to play this game.
And that's coming out
September 20th.
20th. Yeah, I knew it was like mid-September.
Yeah.
That's going to be a Game Pass game, and like, listen, y'all, as much as I'm sure Spencer would love us doing a full episode of Party Animals, that's the same month Starfield comes out. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm telling you, Bethesda, you need to put your game in a different month. You can't compete. You can't compete with the Party Animals. Come on.
I'm sure we will talk about Party Animals plenty on the show. Let's just go back and forth. So you got Party Animals. I want to talk about the new Prince of Persia.
Okay.
I think this game looks dope. So if you haven't seen it, it's being developed. The main reason I'm excited, to be honest with you, I don't personally have a lot of attachment to the Prince of Persia franchise, right? I played Sands of Time in 2002 like everybody else did, and then I moved on, right? I am not a huge guy on this franchise. I'll tell you why I'm excited, though. One, I watched the gameplay trailer, which I feel like a lot of people are bitching about the reveal trailer, because they dared to have a rap song, which is fucking stupid. If you feel that way, you're probably racist.
How many
Anyway,
games have had rap songs in their reveal trailers in the last like 5 years? What are you talking about?
I know, dude.
Y'all
It's
still playing Call of Duty or no? I'm like,
right.
Get outta
It's
here.
it's so stupid, dude. It's so silly. I get the argument of like, oh, it's a little incongruent, but Ubisoft has been making incongruent gameplay trailers for like 10
Ever?
years. Like, that's what they do. They're Ubisoft. They're weird. Like,
yeah.
go watch the gameplay reveal they did at Ubisoft Forward, if that's how you feel. But Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, they have said it's a Metroidvania, which is not my preference on 2D platformers, but I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt because it's being developed by Ubisoft Montpellier, who developed Rayman Origins and Rayman Legends, quite possibly two of my favorite games of the last console generation. They understand what makes 2D platformers fun. They understand that fluidity and motion and, you know, that sort of direct control and the sense of speed that makes 2D platforming fun. They fundamentally get the 2D platformer genre in a lot of ways that like most other developers don't really get, right? And granted, it's been 10 years since they've made that game, and the studio and staff, I'm sure, is different. But the idea of that team at Ubisoft going back to that genre got me incredibly excited. Like, and I think the game looks cool. Like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you, like, it's the most graphically amazing game I've ever seen in my life. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that, like, I'm really excited to see what happens next in the Prince of Persia universe. But, like, Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown looks sick. I think it looks really cool. Like, I was excited by the gameplay that they showed at Ubisoft Forward. I'm excited by the premise of one of my favorite developers getting back to... Because they've been working on, like... They made Riders Republic. They made those Mario and Rabbids games. Like, they've been sort of, like, far flung off in the wilderness of whatever weird Ubisoft thing, right? Like, they've been doing that for 10 years. So, like... And I mean, it's not like they were a dedicated 2D platformer studio before, right? Like, that studio just sort of like jumps from project to project and makes a bunch of shit, right?
Yeah.
But I'm super excited to see them get back to a 2D platformer. I think the game looks rad, and I cannot wait to get my hands on it. That one's coming out January 2024. So, like, they actually put a date on that one. So we're going to get that one fairly soon, and I'm super jazzed to check it out when it comes out.
Yeah, that's not too far off then. That's not bad. I didn't really watch anything about that one. I've never really played any of the Prince of Persia games, like, at all. So I don't have, like, I'm not getting a nostalgia hit for it or anything, you know?
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I'm not really either, right? Like, I played a Prince of Persia game. I played Sands of Time back in 2002. Like, that's the one Prince of Persia game I've played. So I'm in the same boat.
Yeah. I would say, though, like, being that it's going to be a side-scrolling game the way that you've described it, and who's behind it, I think it's going to probably be pretty good, at least.
Yeah, I'm very optimistic about it. The fact that Jordan Mechner, the guy who created Prince of Persia, the original 2D platformer back in 1989, he said, this is the Prince of Persia game I've wanted Ubisoft to make.
Oh, okay.
Like,
that's super promising then.
He's consulted on the project, but he's not, like, part of the active development, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's been a consultant with Ubisoft on all their Prince of Persia stuff. And, I mean, obviously, they've taken a 10-year break on that franchise, right?
Right.
So, like, he's been a consultant for most of their stuff, but he's never been involved in active development. He put out a blog after the reveal that was like, yeah, this is the game that I wanted Ubisoft to make whenever we started doing all this. So, like, if the guy who made the thing is saying he's excited about it, it's probably worth being excited about. IMO. So we'll see how it ends up panning out, but, like, yeah, like, if it's in the same vein as, like, an Ori or a Hollow Knight, but it has the sort of, like, platforming vibe of those old Rayman games, I'm in. You ain't got to say less. I will. Here's my $50. By the way, that's not a full price game. It's $50 instead of $70. So that's cool.
That's cool. That's always good.
Yeah. Less money out of my pocket is always good. These are troubling times.
For sure.
All right, Spencer. What you got next?
Okay. I have one that I don't know a lot about. I watched a 2-minute trailer for it yesterday because I was like, I need to catch up and make sure I haven't missed any games.
Right.
And there's a game coming out called Witchfire.
I
Have you seen anything about this?
I haven't heard a word. No.
Okay, so I don't know where this was shown actually.
That sure sounds like a PC game show game.
That's my assumption as well.
Yeah.
But essentially, you have like strange weapons that most of them just shoot like a gun, right? But the design of them is like really weird and like otherworldly. And you have magic, and you're hunting a powerful witch holding the key to salvation, as they say it. It's like a dark fantasy roguelite shooter. And the people behind it made Painkiller, Bulletstorm, which is a very good shooter from the 360 era. And The Vanishing of Ethan Carter.
This you saying creators of Bulletstorm triggered it in my brain. This was at Summer Games Fest.
Okay, this was at Summer Games Fest. Okay,
Yeah,
I didn't watch all of Summer Games Fest. It was happening while I was
Yeah.
busy because it was randomly at Thursday in the afternoon.
Yep.
But yeah, like just the trailer for it, everything seems really like weird and kind of like dark fantasy creepy, which just checks a lot of boxes for me.
Right.
Like it's a shooter, it's fantasy, and it's all the things in a fantasy world that are dark and creepy and like things that like folk spooky tales are told through.
Right.
I'm interested. I don't know that I'm 100% sold on it yet, but they did show some gameplay and stuff, and it all looks pretty cool.
Yeah, I had not seen any gameplay. There was a trailer at Summer Games Fest. There might have been gameplay that came out later that I definitely haven't seen. But as soon as I like clocked what game you were talking about, because like, bro, there's so many games that get announced around this time of year.
I know, and so many of them we just miss. Like it's impossible to keep up.
Yeah, it's impossible to keep up with all of it. But yeah, I definitely like. I like the vibe. It's got like this very like gross, dark gothic thing going on, which like seems to be a very popular art style these days. And I don't know, it looks cool. Like I'd be curious to check it out. You said it was a roguelike. Like I like roguelikes fine.
Yeah.
So like yeah, that looks like a neat one. Spence, I'm gonna stick in the Ubisoft conference for some reason. I'm just really into
by this. Okay.
Apparently I'm just really into Ubisoft shit this year. You're not gonna be surprised once I say the game. Star Wars Outlaws. Oh my god. They showed 10 minutes of gameplay at Ubisoft Forward. Spencer, this might be the best looking Star Wars game I have ever seen. It's gorgeous.
Bold claims.
It nails the aesthetic. It is going for something that like no other Star Wars game has really gone for before, right? Like, because none of them have taken the like smuggler route, right? Like the Han Solo fantasy, right? Most Star Wars games go after the Jedi thing or the starfighter pilot thing, right? The vast majority of Star Wars games fit in those two buckets. You occasionally get the like grunt trooper game, right? I literally cannot think of a game other than the MMOs that allows you to fulfill the smuggler Han Solo fantasy, right? Literally cannot think of a game that does it. And this game looks good, dude. Like, it's made by the folks that made The Division. It's made by Massive. And it's a single player game that's open world, open planets. They did show a sequence of you being able to fly straight from the ground up to space. So like for people that care about that like level of immersion, it's there. It looked like you could hyperspace jump wherever you wanted to go. There was like a Red Dead-esque sort of vibe. I got a very like, it was Red Dead Redemption but Star Wars kind of vibe off of it. Is sort of like the best comparable I can give, I think.
Okay.
It's very much, it's got like the wanted system from the Empire, and they showed a lot of like dialogue choices that matter. Like basically they showed the main character Kay doing a mission and then coming back to the the dealer that gave her the mission, and there was a gal from the Empire there that said, "Hey, give me my cut because I'm the Empire," right? And then she says, "Fuck off," and then her wanted level with the Empire went up, and she had to like run away, right?
Okay.
So almost like a GTA or Red Dead sort of wanted system, like if you make an enemy in the sector of the Empire or, you know, whoever else controls that sector, sort of like a wanted system going on there.
Yeah.
It has you got a little buddy, and your little, because every Star Wars game, I guess, now is obligated to have a little guy.
Yeah, legally you have to, I think.
Yeah, I think legally, if you make a Star Wars thing now, you have to have a little guy.
For sure.
And so this one has a little guy. It's a little alien. It's not a droid, which is surprising. Because usually it's a droid, which I'm into. But it's a little alien dude, and you can send him to like go press buttons and go like fuck with people and knock shit over or whatever. They showed a lot of cool stuff. If that game ends up living up to like half the stuff they showed, it'll be the best Star Wars game of this generation. It's Ubisoft, so as always, grain of salt, right? Like,
yeah,
we never know, right? I'll believe it when it's in my hands, but like, if it lives up to what they showed there, that game's got a ton of potential. It looks fucking great. It has everything you'd want out of like the smuggler fantasy, right? Like, you're doing missions for creepy weirdos. There's all sorts of bizarre, barren planets. There's spaceship combat. There's, you know, the sort of grounded, sort of third person, you know, getting out of a bad situation kind of vibe. You're running away from the Empire. Like, it nails the vibe, I think, of what you want a Star Wars game that is fulfilling that fantasy to be. So if they execute on what they showed there, and we'll find out in 2024, or again, it's an Ubisoft game. Inevitably, when this gets delayed 5 times and it comes out in 2026, looking at you, Skull and Bones, I'm never gonna get to play Skull and Bones.
Wait, did they not even give it a release date on that at the show? Oh my god, just kill the game, dude. Move on. Jesus. I turned it off whenever they started talking about that because I got pulled away to do something else. And a whole group write an original sea shanty.
Yep.
But didn't announce when the game's coming out.
Nope.
Yeah. Just admit that's not coming out and let's move on with our lives. Good God.
They showed gameplay like a few months ago. Like, they did like a developer stream. It's a video game. I don't know if anyone's ever going to get to play it, but it's a video game anyway. I won't hammer the point home on Skull and Bones.
Yeah.
But Star Wars Outlaws looks sick. It looks so good. It is, Starfield aside, probably the game I was most impressed with overall over the course of the week.
Okay. Sweet. I hope that it lives up to that, man. I do. Because
Yeah,
I have not had a Star Wars game interest me even a little bit since like Battlefront 2 on the PS2.
Right. Yeah.
Just nothing's really been like, yeah, I really want to play that. But this one, that sounds cool. That sounds fun.
Go watch that 10-minute gameplay. I think you'll get the vibe that they're going for.
Yeah, that sounds pretty cool.
It's very space western, and it's sweet.
Sold. I'm in.
Yeah.
Please put that game out and make it good. And if you could, also maybe like put it on Game Pass because I don't want to spend money on it because money's hard. Thanks. Okay, I only have one more. Honestly, like a majority of the games I was excited about were at the Xbox showcase. So,
agreed. Yeah.
The other one that's like, I gotta play it. I'm hyped as hell for. I am still very excited for Alan Wake 2.
Yes.
I am cautiously optimistic in that it is not going to be the same as Alan Wake was.
Yeah.
And that's fine. It is definitely leaning more into survival horror, which I love those games. I love survival horror.
Right.
And it also has definitely got some like control feel to it of there's a lot of stuff going on. And I'm slightly worried that that's going to take away from the Alan Wake feel of it, right? One of the things I loved about Alan Wake, the original one, was it just felt like I was playing a television show. And it was a really easy game to pull your friends, your family, significant other, whatever into it who maybe don't like video games and say,
Right.
hey, why don't we play an episode? Because after, you know, every big crescendo, it has credits that roll like a TV show. And then when you pick it
Right.
back up again, or if you just keep going, it says last time on Alan Wake. So that was really cool to have that.
Right.
And it felt like horror, but not so horror that people who don't like horror could get into it. Like, it felt more like a Twilight Zone or Twin Peaks horror.
Yeah, it's a, you know, obviously the writer has that sort of direct analog to Stephen King.
Yeah.
It feels like a Stephen King thriller.
Yeah.
You know, like, which is not necessarily like a horror film, right? Like, we use the term thriller for that. Like, it's like this high-paced sort of action scary thing, right?
Yeah, like, it's enough that you're a little on edge, or like something will happen and like you might be like, oh damn. But it wasn't like gore and like this just horrifying thing to play, because
Right.
I mean, as much as I love horror, I know that it is like a very grating genre. It is like a very you love it or you are not into it kind of thing. And I'm a little concerned about that happening with this game. But we haven't seen enough, and we don't know enough to know that for sure. Right.
Right.
I'm excited about it. I am still really, really hoping that they take up THQ on their offer to publish physical copies of the game. I know that it's useless in 2023, but I want to put it next to all of the other Alan Wakes on my shelf. Damn it!
Right.
But I do think this is going to be a really cool game. I'm looking forward to it, and I'm ready to see more.
I love the first Alan Wake. I love that game. I think the game's sweet.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's still on Game Pass too. If you've somehow never played it, go play it.
I'm not 100% sure on that. It might be.
I'll look, but I
yeah.
thought it was.
It may not be anymore, but I am concerned about Alan Wake 2. First of all, I don't like survival horror games. Most of them I just find really boring, and it's just like, oh, slow moving combat, point a gun at a thing that pops out at you. Oh, it's spooky, bang, 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 is dead.
Yeah.
Like, to me, what was fun about Alan Wake was the combat loop.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the combat loop of Alan Wake is sweet. Like, the way they utilize light as like a safe zone, and then you go out into the darkness and you have to maintain, you know, flashlight batteries are plentiful, but you do have to maintain them. That's your sort of primary weapon, and then you use that to weaken enemies, and then you can kill them with guns. I think that's a really cool gameplay loop.
Yeah.
And it's fast. Like, Alan Wake is like, for a horror game, it's like surprisingly fast-paced, right? And I like the gameplay of that game a lot, and knowing that the gameplay is fundamentally different, and it will be very much just like this deliberate plotting, sort of like, okay, we're going into the spooky cabin, open the door real slow, okay, I found one bullet, I'm gonna put the one bullet in the chamber,
Yeah.
okay, this is the one bullet I have.
Please
and
don't
then,
make it like that.
boom, here comes a fucking deer man, and oh shit, like,
Yeah.
I don't like survival horror games. Like, I just don't like them. Like, I'll just be straight up. I do not like that genre of game. I didn't like Resident Evil until they made it an action game, right? Like, the Resident Evils that everybody hates are the ones that I like, right? Like, everybody hates 5 and 6. I love 5 and 6. I think those are sweet games. Stories are completely incomprehensible, but fuck, they're fun.
Yeah.
I am concerned about Alan Wake 2. I don't want to be. I love the story of the first game. I think American Nightmare was fun. I want to be excited because I like the franchise a lot. And I mean, we'll find out come October, right? But I am concerned for my personal enjoyment. I'll put it that way. I don't have any interest in this sort of like slow plotting version of Alan Wake, because what they showed was definitely that.
Yeah.
It was slow, plotting, methodical. I don't have a problem with the idea of like the new character and all the story stuff they're doing seems cool, right? Like everything else they're doing looks great. I am just concerned about whether the gameplay loop will actually be fun, because I really enjoyed the gameplay of Alan Wake 1, and if it's not that, I immediately become less interested.
Yeah.
You know?
And I
If
think
it's-
that makes sense, right? Like, that is a big jump in genre.
Yeah.
And I think they could walk that line pretty well. But I don't know that they're going to.
Yeah,
You know?
we'll see what we'll see. Yeah.
We don't know enough to know for sure. We've seen like one thing, right?
Right.
And I think if we're still walking into cabins and getting plenty of stuff that we need, without being like overrun with like ammo and stuff, like we have enough to get by, but like we still need to kind of think about it, you know? I think we'll be good. But if it is that game of like, I walked in, I found a single bullet, I'm like, okay, I don't even like that, and I love survival horror games. If it's the hardest difficulty in the world that they put on there, sure, maybe. But if it's just like normal, just let me have enough stuff that I can progress easily through the story, and I'll be fine.
For sure.
So I'm looking forward to it. I like what they're doing, like between the two characters. I think it's going to be really cool. It's going to be different, and I'm excited about that. It is definitely going to have some Control feel to it, so I'm excited about that because I really liked Control.
Yeah, Control's great. Yeah.
But yeah, like I see where your concerns are, and I think I can see where a lot of people might have that concern who were similar to you, liked Alan Wake because it was Alan Wake, not because it was scary. So I'm looking forward to it though. I think they can do it. I think they're going to put a lot of care into it, so I'm ready for it. And I did look; it is not on Game Pass currently, unfortunately.
That's what I thought, because I thought it got like unlisted, and then like when it got unlisted and then relisted under Remedy, it wasn't in Game Pass anymore.
I think that's
what
what happened. Yeah,
yeah,
but
because it was delisted for a little while.
yeah, you can probably pick it up pretty cheap.
Yeah.
Even like the remake, I think it's like $30. Like,
Right.
it's not too bad, and it's worth the $30 to play because that game is awesome.
Completely agree. Alan Wake is one of my favorite games of that era.
Yeah.
Right? The Xbox 360, PS3 era. It is just a fantastic video game.
Yeah.
So
it did also
absolutely-
have some of the funniest product placement ever. If you
did.
remember that, dude.
It did. There's just fucking batteries all over the
Energizer
shop.
and
Yep.
Verizon everywhere,
Yep.
dude.
All over the shop.
It's so funny.
It's very silly. There's also, I think they also put in Microsoft's like in-car like radio internet system that ended up not working out. I think that's in there too.
I don't even remember what that is.
I don't remember. Anyway, it was very short-lived.
That's funny.
Whatever it was.
That's
There's a
very funny.
bunch of wacky product placement in that game. All right, gang. So that's some of the stuff that we're excited about coming out of the summer shows. And there's a bunch more. Those are just like the ones that immediately sprang to mind for me. It's weird. All the stuff I'm excited about came from Ubisoft.
That's really weird.
I'm in danger.
I'm concerned
Spencer.
for you, Mark.
I'm in danger, man.
I am concerned for your disappointment.
I
he's
was
back.
excited about that. Oh God, he's back.
Oh,
Oh,
no.
God, we gotta get out of here. We gotta get out of here because the lawnmower man is back.
He
Oh,
also
shit.
supports Ubisoft. Undying
Okay.
Ubisoft love.
So we're gonna get out of here really quick, and it's appropriate that we just got jump scared with that because the game that we're playing next month is a little bit scary. It's Last Case of Benedict Fox. We're really excited about Last Case of Benedict Fox because it's spooky, but it's also a platformer. Oh God, they're getting closer. Spencer, we got a jet.
All right, we got to get out of here, guys. We have to save Mark. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.
Thanks.
If you're on audio, come back next month for Benedict Fox, and feel free to tell us how wrong we were about Redfall. I don't care.
Yeah.
Have a great day.
I want to hear your takes. I'm about to hear this guy's take. We gotta go. Fuck.